3 new color tricks and 1 really big tease for next week when we bring it all together in advanced application, week 4. We're still in week 3 on color. Here we go. I'm going to show you the color mixer. I'm going to show you the color grader, and I'm going to show you the HUE slider. Color mixer. Let's open an image. And what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to grab one particular color and emphasize it. I'm going to saturate it more or saturate it less. I'm going to take that color and change its hue in a subtle way, one direction or another. Or I'm going to take a particular color and make it a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. That is the color mixer. Let me collapse my panels. Here it is, 4th panel, 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore, Command 4 or Control 4 on the keyboard will get me there. 4th panel, the color mixer. And it is a HUE slider. Ooh, I should not have said HUE slider because there's another tool we're going to talk about later on this same bonus video. That's official name is the HUE slider. It's relatively new. HUE slider is a new slider, but this is an older one. Hue, saturation, and lightness or luminance, sometimes referred to as brightness, HSB, hue, saturation, brightness. Here, hue, saturation, luminance, or lightness, if that works for you. I can separate a particular hue. And what do I want to do? I want to saturate or desaturate a particular hue. Or, look, click. Or I can dial a hue to the right or to the left on the actual color wheel. 30-degree steer to the right or 30-degree steer to the left. I can steer a color. Now I can't go all the way around. I can't even take a color and dial it to the 180-degree side of that wheel. No, it lets me do 30 degrees. 30 or 30. That's what it lets me dial here. Or the luminance, the brightness of a particular color. I can make a particular color brighter or darker. That's what we're playing with. Let's look at saturation. It's the most fun to play with. I know I have green trees and blue sky, but I don't want to see the green. I'm going to drag the green slider down, and my greens, are supposed to desaturate, but they only partially desaturated, and here's why. I thought those green tree leaves were green tree leaves, but almost no color is a pure version of a single hue. It's green with a little yellow mixed in. And so, instead of me trying to calculate what all the combinations might be, I'm going to show you the coolest magic trick ever. When you're in the color mixer, leave it. Leave the sliders. Come over to the image itself, and the image itself will become the target sliders. If you click the little target button, I just did, right there. You want that button. Now when I hovered, it said, hey, you could have gotten here easier with a shortcut. On the Mac, Command, Option, Shift, S. Command, Option, Shift, S. Command, Option, Shift, S to get to saturation. Command, Option, Shift, H goes straight to hue. Command, Option, Shift, L would go straight to luminance. PC users, Control, Alt, Shift. Control, Alt, Shift, S or H or L. That's what you want. It's easier. You can avoid the sliders. If I do Command, Shift, Option, S, and come out to the image becomes the slider. Whoa, that's so weird. I'm seeing 3 little planets floating there in space. And the little one is telling me that's the part that you're hovering over. that little planet that's a little higher than the other two is saying this is the color we're talking about right there. And it says it's kind of a combo of the green and that yellowish, but we'll figure it out for you. I'm going to click and drag down, and it desaturates. It knows the mix. The image itself becomes the slider. Whoa, I want to do that to this blue sky. Click, drag down, the blue just desaturated. Now, if I find a color like pink and I click up, it super saturates. It saturates. It doesn't desaturate. I desaturate by dragging left or right, left in this case, or down. Okay? So you can control any particular color, but it's controlling that color globally in your image. It's a wild trick. You've seen this done before. It's how it's done. But you don't want to know what the mix is. Just grab it and go. Option or Alt on the Mac, Alt on the PC. I'm going to hit reset at the bottom. Cancel became reset when I held the Alt key on the PC or the Option key on the Mac. I don't want pink. Command Shift Option S, find the pink, drag it out. There's a little pink over here. It must have been a different shade. Now it's out. Here's another pink. Now it's out. You see? That's how we play the desaturation or saturation game. That sky looks a little, I'll undo. That sky looks a little hot to me, so I'm just going to pull some of the blue back. I just dialed it back. The green looks pretty cool, but I want that green tree to go a little darker. The green leaves. Command Shift Option L for luminance. Darken, lighten, darken, lighten, darken. Change the luminance of all the pinks. Darken them, brighten them. It's great for flesh tones. Flesh, brighten, darken. Don't think the color's quite right? Command Shift Option H for hue, and you can edit the hue 30 degrees one way or 30 degrees the other. Pretty fancy global color fixes for any individual color. I love the color mixer. It's a fun tool to play with. Command Shift Option H for hue. Change the hue. Pinks, oranges, I'm playing with that hue. Blue sky, a little pinker, a little more cyan. Usually that's not the problem with sky. Usually the problem with a sky is luminance. Command Shift Option L, and you can darken or lighten the sky to your taste. That's a beautiful trick. That's a beautiful trick. The color mixer. Basically, what I call the claw. It takes my hand to form a velociraptor claw. Command Shift Option or Control Alt Shift claw S for saturation. Claw H for hue. Claw L for luminance. Claw L, luminance. That grass looks a little bright to me. Dialing the grass color down. The grass colors are greens plus some of these icky yellowy browns. I'm doing both. The letter P for preview. You see what's up. All right, my friends, that's the color mixer. Let's cancel that. And now let's go look. Let's go look, if you don't mind, at the color grader. The color grader I like using for creative color effects, like a sepia tone. If you know what I mean, I'll show you one. A sepia. Or you're going to use this to make your own topaz filters, Nik filters. Instagram or TikTok, filters, iPhone camera, filters. All they are doing is this. They're doing something called color grading. It's the next panel down, color grading. Now notice I'm doing global color changes. Global color changes, but it's globally changing one color at a time. Color grading is going to apply color globally, but not to specific color types, but to specific tonal values, mid-tones, shadows or dark tones, highlights or bright tones. Let's take our highlights. Highlights. Notice I'm adjusting 3 circles at once. What kind of circles are these? Well, they look like the color wheel, Rick. Do they look like Munsell's incorrect color wheel, or do they look like the real color wheel? Well, let's see. Blue is opposite yellow, and red is opposite cyan, and green is opposite magenta. Why, Rick, this looks like the real color wheel. It is. I'm glad you know it. The real color wheel is what we're after. It's what I can use to create complementary color mixes. My highlights, my brightest brights, snow, are pretty bright brights. I'm going to make those go a little bit chillier, a little bit towards the blues. I just cooled down my highlights. I'm going to tap the letter P for preview, and you can see that in fact I made my brightest brights, my highlights, a little bluer. That might sell the effect of snow. My shadows, my darker areas, I might want to go opposite of that. Complementary, blues one direction, opposite on the real color wheel, yellows in the other direction. I'm adding a little bit of yellow to my shadows. Hit the letter P for preview. Before, after. You see the difference? Before, after. I'm color grading. I'm telling my highlights go one way on the real color wheel, and my shadows go the opposite way on the real color wheel. Your mileage will vary, but play that game. That's how you could attempt to use this. Midtones are not my darkest darks, nor are they my brightest brights. My midtones, I generally play with it last, even though they put it as the first circle. I can point my midtones in a particular direction. Usually I let it play along with either my highlight color or my shadow color. Now you're going to see next week, and I'm not going to show you this week, this is a part of my tease. Next week I'm going to show you that when you made all this cool color shifting, the color grading, I'm going to show you how to save it as your own preset, as your own filter that you can play back with one button next week. We don't just waste our time creating them, we save them after we've created them so that we can play them back over and over. That's color grading. Now, I color graded a color image. Doesn't surprise me at all. But there's a great piece of fun that occurs when you go out of your way. I'm going to Option or Alt click the cancel button at the bottom, which turns into reset. I've said that many times. We're back to where we were. I don't like it nearly as much. But I'm going to go up to the top and change my color image to a B and W. That's not root beer, that's black and white. I know it. There it is, B and W. I converted this color image to black and white. Now look what happens when I color grade. Highlights, pick a color. Pick a color. Shadows, opposite direction. I'm creating a two-tone, what's often known as a split tone. In fact, in previous versions of Adobe Camera Raw in Lightroom and Bridge, it was called split toning. Split toning. It's a way to create the equivalent of a sepia. A sepia, you know what I mean. They're like old-fashioned, sort of yellowish brown images. First convert your color to black and white, then color grade them. Color grade them. I'm going to Option click the reset button. And we'll start it over. Black and white, midtones only, go a little to the orange. It's a sepia. One color, that's all I need. Midtones, shift. If I'd like, I can take my shadows in an opposite direction. My highlights can play even in a third direction. The letter P is preview, before and after, and you could save that as a preset you'll learn next week. That's color grading in a nutshell. Let's crack open the nut just a little. You and I have been editing all three circles at once. Let me option reset. But you could see a bigger, better picture, a closer up view of shadows only. And when you click these individual shadows, midtones, highlights, they give you a bonus. Below the three circles, I'm seeing blending and balance, and that's just saying, if I go highlights one way, shadows to the other, I can blend them less smoothly, there'll be a more abrupt change, or more smoothly, it's a blending. How well do they blend? Smoothly or harshly? Balance, well, I push them both to max, but I really want more in my shadows color, or I want more in my highlights color. That's you sort of tipping the balance towards one or the other. Those are the two sliders that you see. Okay? Now below each individual, there's a little slider that it doesn't reveal what it is. Oh, now that I clicked and dragged it, I'm seeing a value change by L. Luminance. Luminance. I've got a luminance slider underneath those. So the highlights don't just go yellow, but they also brighten or darken. My highlights brighten or darken. But when I click the individual circles, I see hue separate from saturation, separate from luminance. So I could play with the value of the hue. I might have more control if I do that. You're just going to see that difference. The three circles at the same time, with particular sliders below, individual larger circles with more direct slider control for hue, saturation, and luminance. If I keep going, there's another little line that separates, and then there's global. Global color shift. I would like to crank all of this towards the greens, super saturate the greens, and dial the luminance up on the greens. It's my least favorite, but there could be a use for that, particularly if I'm playing the black and white world, in which case applying a particular hue might be easier to control globally. And save that as a preset next week. Okay, that's the color mixer and color grading. Hey Rick, I'm so grateful that you turned that into black and white as you did the color grading, but I noticed that when I look up, it doesn't say color mixer anymore. It says B&W mixer, the black and white mixer. I didn't see that before. No, it wasn't there before. It only shows up when you go to black and white. Look at. Let's reset. Option reset. There we go. Oh, it says color mixer again until I turn it into black and white. Now it's the black and white mixer. This is the greatest way to make great quality black and white images from your color images. Come out and onto, oh, wait a minute, I got to play the same game. Go click the target. Or it just gave me a clue. Earlier, you and I did claw S for saturation, claw L for luminance, claw H for hue. But if and only if you've already clicked the black and white button, you can do claw G for grayscale controller. At least that's what I say it means. When I hover, Command Option Shift G, a grayscale mix. Now I know and you know that that sky was originally blue. But now I'm going to click on that and edit that what was blue, grayscale, darker. I know that barn was brownish, but I want to brighten it. Click it, and it takes the browns and brightens. Whatever color I'm finding there. Whatever color these little, I don't know, pollen balls were, you see? So it's a way to pick and choose what the color was. Does it go dark or light? So you can create your own custom grayscale color. I'll show you one more example of that. All right, let's try a multicolored image. Lots of vivid and varied colors. I've got a hooded oriole. Gosh, I love this little bird. It flew into my backyard and landed on my big saguaro cactus during a very tiny season of the year when these blooms bloom, and then those blooms turn into these little fruits. And that little guy, he is very fickle. Boy, he flits in and he's gone. Very tough to get the shot. At any rate, I love it in color, but what if I wanted to play with it as a black and white? Well, that's no fun as a black and white now, is it? All the colors, once converted to black and whiteness, are just too similar. There's not enough contrast. And so I sneak, oh wait, Command Shift Option G, Claw G, and now I'm targeting whatever that color was. Blue sky, contrast. Green cactus, contrast. Yellow bird, up, contrast. You see, I can use it to regain the contrast that's often lost when you convert a color image into a grayscale image. It's a good way to save the grayscale day. All right, canceling out. It's time to talk about my new HUE Slider. Everything I've been doing for you here it's global. I'm changing greens everywhere that greens occur. But this is a way to do local color correction, local color shifting. Number one, the HUE Slider. Let me give you a look at it. And get your pencil ready for two benefits. I'm going to write down two benefits of the new-ish HUE Slider. The HUE Slider only occurs in local tools. The color mixer, which at one point we saw turn into the grayscale mixer, right, the BW mixer, and the color grading tools are global tools. But if I go to the killer tool, K, I'll get a new color adjuster. Here, it's the HUE Slider dial. HUE Slider. That's what we're going to discuss. Boy, it doesn't look like it takes a lot of real estate, but wow, is that powerful. Two benefits. Number one, it's a local color adjuster, not global. Number two, it allows me to dial the color wheel further than 30 degrees. This color controller lets me turn the wheel 180, in fact up to 360 degrees of color shift. Neither of the other two global tools allow me to do that. Now we're going to play a little bit. I'm teasing you for next week. I'm showing you an advanced trick because I can hardly live without it. I'm really going to unpack this in week 4. Brace yourselves. I'm going to show you a new color trick. It's Shift C on both Mac and PC. Shift C. Shift C. I want to shift a color. Shift C. I want to shift a color. I did Shift C, and you may not have noticed, but I can't help but notice anymore that it generated for me a new thing called a mask. It created for me a new mask for a particular color range. Now I'm going to go show it what color range. And I could click on the dark purples and or the light purples or pinks. And that's one way to play the game. But the smartest way to play this, I'm going to just tell you right up front, is not click. I could click and then shift click and add a couple of colors together. But the smartest way to play this game is to click and drag over a bunch of colors that you want. I'm clicking and dragging. Now I'm being cautious to grab as many pinks and purples as I can, but no greens. I release. Something just happened. Something just happened. And it's showing me in pinkness the area that I currently am selecting. Refine. If I go to the right, I get more pinkness. It's still missing just those bottom green leaves. If I go to the right, it gets less. Look what a great job it's doing selecting those purpley areas to begin with. Now, they still look pink to me. Here's why. My color overlay is set to pink. I could make it blue. It's not going to be blue in my image. It's just a visual for me to see what it is I have selected. What is it I have selected? I like my overlay color to be wildly different than the objects I'm selecting. I was selecting pink and purples. Unfortunately, my highlight, my overlay was set to pinks and purples. I'm changing it wildly. I can see now what I'm really receiving, what I'm getting. I can see what I'm getting. It just created a mask, a selection, a stencil of just those pieces. Now I'm going to subtract. We're going to do a lot more of this next week. From that mask, I'm going to subtract with a brush something that got caught by accident up here in the top. I'm subtracting with my brush. I've got pretty much what I want here. In fact, I can subtract again, subtract another color range. Anything that was in this area. Let me zoom up so we can see. It looks like it started to creep up the green stalk. So anything in that area, I'm clicking and dragging again. Turn off. Oh, I got rid of too much. Subtract, maybe with a brush. I'm just showing you that you can play by adding. Tongue is optional. I'm subtracting. I'll play one more and we'll be done. All right, I now have a great area selected, and I'm going to hide the overlay, the blue overlay. You can click, get your pencil, you can click the checkbox to turn off the overlay. Trust me, all the little purple buds are selected, ready for me to change. So I hit the checkbox to turn off and on the overlay. Or I can hit the letter Y. Don't ask me why, but Y is the shortcut for turn on or off the overlay. And I'm going to start using that tool now that you know about that shortcut. That was Y. On or off the overlay. It has a sister, Shift Y. And Shift Y shows me different views of what it is I'm selecting. I did Shift Y and it went into a black and white version. Shift Y again. Shift Y again. These are different ways to see what it is I'm actually selecting so that I could subtract with a brush any of these areas accidentally garnered. Those were stalks. Those weren't parts of my flower buds. It's just another way to view it and maybe do a better job selecting. Shift Y just rotates through various ways of seeing the areas you're about to change. If you keep Shift Ying, it comes right back around the horn and you're back to where you had been. Y is the overlay. Shift Y was that rotate. It's still selected. Down to our new friend, the HUE slider. Now, I'm going to take a close-up view of the HUE slider. Let's look. What's fascinating is whatever color you selected. When I did Shift C and I clicked and I dragged with the eyedropper, it shows you that color center of the HUE slider. Now, by the way, you might think that's the rainbow, but that's the color wheel. The color wheel popped open and spread out. That's the wheel. In fact, notice that at the end of one wheel, it would come back and continue on the other side of the wheel. That's just the wheel arbitrarily broken and splayed open with the color I selected, those lavender or purple flowers right there in the center. Now there's a black line, and currently what's below the black line registers is aligned with what's above the black line. But that's not going to be the case. Below is my source hue. It's the color I currently have selected. Above that line is the target. What hue do you want it to be? I'm going to zoom back. Try to let you see everything at the same time. The image and my slider. My image, my little selections are currently little lavender purple things, and I want them to be yellow things. I'm dragging my source towards yellow. Look up. You took purple, lavender, and you made it yellow. That's the target. If the target were red, that's what I've got. If the target were blue or green, that's what I've got. Notice it's allowing me to take any color. The opposite of magenta, purpley, pink is green. And the HUE slider is the only color controller that allows me to redirect a color at more than 180 degrees all the way around the color wheel. That is very useful. Now I just took a big steer. I steered really big around that color wheel curve, didn't I? But if you just want to make really minute adjustments, which is valuable for flesh tones, by the way, then you want to click this little button that says Use Fine Adjustment. It really super slow-mos the drag down. It hardly lets you budge. It's a super fine adjustment. And so when you're close, but you want to just nudge it ever so slightly, turn on that fine adjustment and give it a push. It'll just protect you from making really big swings, from overcompensating. Uncheck that, and wow, go for it. Now those areas are still selected. I just changed the hue. I can continue working with any other slider. I'm going to come down and play with the saturation of that hue now, because that reddish pink looks a little out of touch. I'm going to dial the saturation down, and now it looks a little bit more real. Or exposure, down. Or contrast, down or up. It's all still selected. Remarkable. This is going to become, I promise, one of your favorite tools. We'll see more of that as we continue to work. One more little giggle. Let's do something a bit more complicated, and then I'll let you go, and we'll head off to the next bonus video. You just saw 3 major new tools, right? You saw the color mixer, the color grader, and the HUE slider. A couple of keyboard shortcuts mixed in there for goodness. We're going to use these on people's faces. We're going to use this on shirts. We're going to use, oh man, what was I doing in Chicago? After they filled the river with green. Must have been near St. Patrick's Day. You know they tend to do that. But gosh, I want this picture to sell on iStock Photo forever, not just after St. Patty's Day. In fact, maybe I'll sell two. Maybe I'll sell one where the water's green, and I'll sell one where the water's not green. Here we go. Shift C, grab a color. I'm going to click and drag. Why? Because I want every watercolor in that bay. Darks, lights, variations. I don't see my overlay. I'm going to hit Y. Oh gosh, it selected the sky, the buildings. It really selected everything except this red pole and that yellow boat. Well, my sampled color is grabbing too much, so sample less, I'm telling it. That's better. It just sampled less. Now, blue for water, I might want to see a different color for my overlay. Let's look for horrifying green. That way I can tell what I've actually got going here. Let's subtract another color range. Subtract anything you see in this range. Ah, that was too much. Undo. I better subtract with a brush. The blue sky reflection was too similar to the water's color. So I'm just going to use a brush. Careful as I get near those edges, right? Just to paint out those other areas that don't really matter to me. I really have the water. Now that I know I have the water, I don't want to see the green overlay. I'm going to hit Y. It's hidden. I'm going to come down to my HUE slider. I see that it's not quite blue. It's kind of a teal, albeit darker teal, but that's the hue. Now I'm going to drag it towards blue. I now have blue water. Done. Incredible. Next week, let's option click. You'll see that I can even do something as crazy as ask for a brand new mask. Please show me, automatically select for me my subject. You figure it out is what I told it to do. And it said, well, I think this is your subject. Are you seeing this artificial intelligence working so smartly? Oh, you were so close, I tell it. Let me just subtract for you with a brush at this point. This area right here. Wow, you did a great job selecting the subject, which was in fact this little ship or ferry boat. Awesome work. It just needed a little help and I gave it to it. Thank you. Turn off the overlay. Let's tell that object to change color. Now, why isn't it changing the white? Because white is neutral. White, in fact, is hueless. But the colors, the hues themselves, can rotate. They can be saturated or changed in any way to make my subject pop. That's it for bonus video 2. Soon, take a break, come back. Bonus 3.